Well, good morning. Here we are again. Boycie's in his basement after a couple of weeks away in the UK. That was a bit of a fun visit, not least that they put Portugal back on the amber list, so we just scrambled back in time just to save any problems with flights and all that, but we got here. Honestly, I don't think the government knows what they're doing sometimes. Put it on get everybody to go on holiday for a few weeks and then tell them they've got to come home. But anyway, we're here. Summer is here. It is boiling, 29 degrees I think today. I've got my fan on over there just to keep things cool because it's just sweaty. But anyway, we're here, episode 8, and I'm looking forward to cracking on again, which is what I'm doing. I've got my frame here ready. I'm just going to do the top piece, the deck piece there. I've cut this piece out just to put an extra reinforcing piece in there, which I will glue when I come to do the top deck. And here we are. This is it's the green frame I've traced out here. I've got my piece of wood behind there, oops, with the carbon paper ready to go, and this is all kind of set up on the marks there, on the setup level here and here, so it should be about right. I mean, I gauge it there because we're right bang on the line, because I want the maximum depth of wood, because here, as the deck starts falling away, I want this bit here to be 90 mil, which is the 3.5 inches, and I've got 94 there, so I'm just in. But again, we've got lots of cutouts going on here, the carling, the shear, you know, and you can see the wood here. You haven't got much of it left there. It is a weak point as far as I can see, but you've only got the deck on top, I guess. But again, there's no plywood cutouts here, the gussets to strengthen that up. So we have to rely upon the good old Glenelg that this is strong enough. So that's what I'm doing. Just odd pieces where, you know, like that, I can stick an extra piece of plywood to frame that on both sides, because that's right at the front, taking all the impact of the seas. So that seems to me to make sense to do. Oh, it's lovely with that fan on there. So that's what I'm doing. After I've done this frame, I'm going to put it together on the stem section. That's frames 7 and 6, and just see what they look like. And then I'm going to get the setup motor stringers here onto my frames and start marking out the position on the motor stringers of where the frames will come. And if I'm holding them together, I can cut them across with a saw, so I know I've got them exactly at 90 degrees. And then I'm going to build these brackets and bolt them onto the motor stringers, so that when I come to finally assemble it, that I can bolt them finally to the frames. That's what I'm saying. If I put the mounts on the motor stringers, and then finally when the frames are in place, I don't want to do it in here because the floor here is uneven and not level, and I really want to get it on a flat floor, set it all up perfectly, get the frames absolutely perpendicular to the center spine and hanging absolutely vertical, so we get it all right to start. And then we should be able to check all the frames from the center lines just to check how true they are, which might make a little bit of trimming to be done, but I've got to cut out lots of wood's got to come out on the edge for the carlings to get the longitudinals in. So little way off yet, and I'm still struggling to find my garage, so we're not even started building it yet, which is a bummer to say the least. But I'll plod on here as far as I can, and I'm sure I can start building some other bits and pieces in my basement until I'm ready to get out. So I'll crack on. So, problems. I've hardly started, and I don't know if I'm striving here for too much accuracy, and it's not possible. I mean, when you're measuring these things and you're looking around the center line off these plans, I mean, the center of the width of a pencil is 1 millimeter, isn't it? So, you know, you're never going to be within 1 millimeter. So, millimeter is your chosen accuracy? If you're outside of 1 millimeter, you got to do something about it. I don't know. I'm just looking at I just thought I'd measure these. This is my this is frame 7, so obviously made these frames up and I measured those and they were pretty much spot on. This is the top plank and it's got to be 79 mil, so that's my kind of 79, or was it 89? 79 mil there, 3.5 inches, and then that would cut a sort of slight bow into there, and that's the bow. So I thought I'd measure from the center line out to the very tip, and that came in at 74.8, and the other side came in at 75.4. So 75.8, 75, so that's 6 millimeters. That's getting... Anyway, so I thought, well, I'll measure. You see, I've drawn the original frames. We can see the frame here and the line all the way through here. So I've put this on the center line, pretty much, and there's the line up the edge there. So I'd measure from the tip there to the center line on the plans to see what the first drawing of the plans came out. That came out to 75 as opposed to 74.8, so I'm within 2 millimeters. So okay. And from the right hand side, this line on the plan on that corner came to 75.9 as opposed to 75.4, so 5 millimeters difference on that one. And this is putting the piece of the paper, the plans, putting them on the center line here. It's putting that setup level, this line here, getting all four, tacking it down, weighting it down. So we're still getting 0.5 centimeter differences. So I put the frame 7 on, measured that to the center to there, and I got 75.8, and on this one I got 75.6, 2 millimeters, and that's because I measured here to the center to that tip when I was gluing and screwed it down, so that I got far greater accuracy on the actual frame, which is probably the most important bit. But it's still 2 millimeters out, and I think 2 millimeters. You're never going to see it, are you, on the boat? If you're looking down the center line, you'll never see 2 millimeters. So that would appear to be acceptable tolerance. And this one here, this top beam here, the deck beam, is 6 millimeters out. So I shall obviously trim, when I glue it, I shall trim the edge to match the frame. But which is correct out of all this one? Because my first attempt here, look, 75, and it's 75.8 in reality. That's 8 millimeters difference. This one's 75.6, that's 75.9, 3 millimeters difference. 75.4. So the worst there is, well, I've got about 6 millimeters difference. But 6 millimeters, I think we're all agreed, is too much difference. So which one is correct? This is another go away and think about it, except that the frame is built and it is symmetrical within 2 millimeters. So I think that's good enough, and that's within tolerance. So it's going to be really interesting to see this setup on the jig when they're all put into position in the center line. They're hanging up and down, they're perpendicular to the frame, to then measure from the center line out to each of the tips of all of my 7 frames, and to see how much tolerance difference I've got. So it will be possible then, I think, to shave, I mean, a couple of millimeters off of those to alter the shape slightly, but to bring them into exact symmetry. I can't see any other way of doing that just at the minute, because I don't know what is the correct value out of this, because I'm drawing out of these things and they seem to be, it seems to be an inherently, well, I say inaccurately, well, I can't get it within 6 millimeters from the plans, but I'm putting it on the center line, I'm using the setup level, I'm doing everything that I should do and double checking. You know, we've had this before, haven't we, where I had to pull the setup level down about 4 or 5 millimeters to get this shape right at the top, and so that seems to be saying that about 5 millimeters is acceptable, but I don't want to make it within 5 millimeters. I wanted to make it, you know, within no millimeters, but that seems to be unrealistic. 2 millimeters seems to be a realistic value, and that seems to be the one to work on. So I'm going to go away and think about it. It seems to be my favourite pursuit, isn't it, to find out or think about what's the best way to get around this, or am I just my expectations of the tolerances are at the moment 2mm is too great or too small a tolerance. Yes, I don't know. Comments? Anybody? Anybody? Well, you must have. Anyone who's built a boat would come across this before, and the vagaries of drawing off a piece of paper through carbon paper with a pencil that's 1mm thick, as to what is acceptable and what is not. Comments below, please. Hello. So a little bit of an interlude from the measurement problems and the tolerances, because I got some peel ply. I bought it on eBay and it was delivered, and I want to do a little experiment, or continue my experiments with the resin on pieces of wood that are going to be near vertical, because the side of the boat, the bottom is fairly flat till we get to the bow, but if you have to epoxy that together, then I don't want to have runs in it, so I want to find a way to stop the runs. And you do have a cloth, a fiberglass woven cloth. I haven't got any yet, but I must get some. So what I've tried to do is this. I'm using the West Systems 105 epoxy resin. This is the 207, the special coating hardener, which has the UV properties in it. And this stuff here is called colloidal silica. Unfortunately, the name has come off with the tape on it, and it's just like a very fine white powder, incredibly fine, and it's a thickening agent. And you can put as much as little as you want in to make it like sort of buttery, pasty or creamy consistency. So what I've tried to do is to apply the 3 systems here, and that's what I've done here. So this is the peel ply. It seems to be two-sided. There's a kind of slightly thicker one side and smooth the other side, so I'm hoping when you pull that off it will come with a smooth finish. That's just normal epoxy on there. Unfortunately, you're going to see the ridge there, and that was a fold in the peel ply from where it was posted. I thought, stupidly, when you put the epoxy on, that would come out, but you see you can pull it, but it doesn't want to come out. So there's a learning curve. So we'll come back at that tomorrow, peel it off, and I'm hoping that will be a smooth finish, and that would be the answer to my problem. This is the one that I have done with the colloidal silica to make it up into a creamy paste. It was very yellow, but the yellow has kind of gone see-through. There's a few bits, but I'm not really taking dust precautions. But you can see where I've tipped it, you can see the lines because it's so thick. The lines of the tipping brush, and that hasn't come out. So that was clearly too thick for that, but it has stopped it running. Now this was the original mahogany that I did with epoxy and 2 coats of epiphanes, and it was the UV property, the 207. And so what I've done is to just do with the leftover epoxy, I've just put that on, and this will replicate the side of the boat. And I don't know if you can see already, I can see it's starting to drip. See, it's gathering there. There's a line at the bottom. In fact, along here, it's actually going to drip, isn't it? And what I've done here is I've done 2, maybe 3 coats, used my excess deliberately to make it too thick, just to see. And I don't know if you can see the run coming down there from the screw hole, and it's kind of running all the way down, and there's the excess. So that's the danger that I'm trying to avoid with this whole thing, and hence the experiments. That was the original epiphanes, and that's the Ronsil, the cheap varnish, and you can see that's really deteriorating very quickly. The epiphanes is holding up a bit better, but it's not brilliant. And these were the original experiments. This was done in the winter, and that's when it was quite humid, and that's the water got into the epoxy. This is epoxy, 2 epiphanes and 2 epoxy. We see the epoxy itself has just gone completely cloudy. Epiphanes has slowed it down but not stopped it. And this is Ronsil on the epoxy, and you can see that's had the same effect. Epoxy again in 2 epiphanes, and it's just hopeless. So so useful experiments, and we'll come back at this tomorrow, and I'll peel the peel ply off, and we'll see what we've... Right, so here we are the next day. you can see, there's a very small yellow bird. There's an aside called a Portuguese bishop bird. He's tiny, it's about that big, but he's bright yellow and black. He migrates and he's just reappeared again, no doubt busy making more Portuguese bishop birds. And he's so visible that the birds of prey here look straight for him, so he flies in the bushes very, very low, very, very cautious. And this is sweet potatoes. Look at them planting the seeds manually, or the plants. Lay all these plastic strips, and this is an irrigation tube with 2 black plastic pipes to irrigate underneath, because it won't be raining now for several months, I don't think. We have lots of water down below. Anyway, back to business, and it's all had time to dry, and some very, very interesting results. Here's my peel ply. So I was hoping I could do this with one arm, but I can't. There, so that's the peel ply as it comes off, and it is, I think it is cloth both sides, and we're getting the textured finish. Anyway, this is so interesting to do this. That fold in the peel ply came through with 2 big blobs there, and it replicated, and you do have the textured finish here. Sorry, that's the plain irrigate doing the rice fields. I think he's either doing the seeds or he's doing some fertilizer, but that's the finish. And to be honest, that's pretty hopeless, because there's a lot of sanding there to get that line out. This one here is just rubbish, and I thought with the missus we talked about maybe you could iron this plastic sheet under a towel to get those creases out, but as it stands, not a success. This was the thickened epoxy with colloidal silica, and you can see where I've tipped it with it was a new paintbrush, and you've got all the striations in there, and it's not a smooth finish at all, and was too thick, equally rubbish. Here's the surprise, and this is why you have to do this stuff. I mean, this wood is just looking fantastic underneath the epoxy coats. So this one I just did the one coat, and I hope that, and I hung it up here, so if it was going to run I would let it run. And actually it's gathered at the bottom along here, but it's actually pretty good. Now this one, I had the stuff left over, and I put on 3 coats quite heavily, thinking yeah, this is going to run like buggery, and the only drip is just there where the screw is, so that really doesn't count. You can see the drips of the excess down the bottom here, but actually it's not run at all. It's just thinned itself out, and the excess has gone off the bottom here, which is totally surprising. Now I hope you can see the glint, but it really brings out the mahogany, the golden colors in there. And then this is going to be for the decking and the side of the boat, and it's going to be epoxied and then varnished, and that's clearly what I'm going to do. The only experiment, the thing I've got to do next is the fiberglass. It's not matting, it's a woven fabric, and as I said yesterday, I haven't done any really any research. I've got to find out what to use here, but I need to put it on a vertical surface. In fact, I'll probably use this, epoxy that in and make sure it goes see-through, and but we can still see the clarity. So probably best is to do half, isn't it, and then leave half and just check that we've got a good surface and we're not going to spoil the look of the wood. As for thickened epoxy, rubbish. As for peel ply, I don't know why you use peel ply, to be honest. Perhaps somebody could tell me, but not a success. Back to plan A. Well, here we are again. Downstairs I've been doing some thinking, a lot of thinking, and been doing some work. I have, let me check the sounds coming, yes. I've made up frame 7, the last frame, and I figured out where I'm going wrong, I think. Had a short interlude with the stuff upstairs, to put the pill ply and check out these surfaces that are more vertical surfaces. So that was quite interesting, and shows you why you got to experiment with these things before you do it, because you can't afford to have it dripping and running on the side of the boat, or else it'll just be a nightmare to sand. So back to the problem. Here we go. This is frame 7 and is completed. So there's my extra frame bit of plywood, which I think is 6mm ply. So it's just, I think it was more just to make me feel better that it's got more strength on that corner there. And I've done the top piece and I glued that on yesterday. And so you're probably wondering, what did I decide about all the different measurements that I'm getting? And the answer to the problem was, of course, RTFP-B. Read the kin plans, boys. So this is my frame 7 on the lime line. So I measured on the plans with it obviously on a flat surface from there to there, and that would be the dimension that I'm looking for. And would you believe I got 75.2 or 752 millimeters. I'm just going to put this down. 75.2, and I think I got 75.8 there and 75.6 there. They were within 2mm, but still that one's 6mm out, that one's 4mm out. So what to do? Well, I thought the thing is it's too wide. So what I've done is I have scribed a line. You can see here I did it manually, and I came in there the 4mm, which will put that at 75.4, which is within my 2mm tolerance, and I've done 4mm here, which will make that 75.2, which makes that spot on the plans. So at the end of the day, read the plans, take the measurements off there. How I'm going so wildly adrift by transferring the plans onto the table, I don't know, because you can see here, you see the scribed line, and it's following it exactly, which is on the cut as it is here and all the way down to the bottom. So this is going to bring it inside that line, and exactly the same there. We're following exactly that line that I've got and all the way down here. So you know, these can only be millimeters out, but I still don't understand why transferring the plans. I'm obviously not being careful enough, and I do acknowledge that, but I take great care with this. And you know, I've got these setup lines, the center line, I align them perfectly, and we're still getting errors of sort of 6-8 millimeters in places out, which is just unacceptable. So I'm happy that once I've trimmed this off, I'll get my spoke shaver and just take those few millimeters off. I'm happy that this frame is looking good and is the right size and the right shape. The question is, it comes back to all the other frames, doesn't it? So what I've decided to do is, once I've cleared this away, I'm going to obviously do the spoke shape, varnish this or epoxy encapsulate it. I'm going to get each of the frames back, starting then with frame 6, put them on the paper plans, measure exactly what they should be and what they are, and just check they're exactly symmetrical and within 2 millimeters, which is going to be my chosen, and I think it's a practical tolerance to have for this. You're never going to see it on the boat, but I think the most important thing is symmetry, not necessarily, you know, if it's 2 millimeters out one way or the other. I don't think you're ever going to see that. I don't think it'll make any difference to the performance. It won't make it go off one way or the other. But symmetry is going to be noticeable, and so that would seem to be more important. So I'm gradually getting down on it. So I'll probably just do a little appendum to this one and get this episode 8 off, and then I think I'm going to do a sort of a summary, highlights of what I've learnt through doing these frames. Because every Barrelback or Glenelg boat that I've seen on the internet, you know, you're presented with the frames complete, and so these you know, whoever was building them must have had the same sort of dilemmas, but it's all completely gone. And my idea was to bring these problems as I discover them, and then so somebody building this would have half a clue or a better clue as to some of the problems they face and try to find a better way. And I would I'll talk about it in the addendum, I think, to all this, and what I learned and what I would do differently next time, because I think there must be a better way than transferring these plans with carbon onto a bit of wood, as it doesn't seem accurate enough. But let's see. I'll get this cleaned up and encapsulated. I'll get the other frames, start putting them on, and it'll be very interesting to see how accurate I've been, particularly when we go back to the transom and the first builds, where perhaps was less scrupulous about the sizing than I should be, or than I would want to be. Anyway, we'll come back to that later. Right, for I think the last time on episode 8, I think I'm going to wrap this up and get this out on YouTube, because I'm going away for a few days touring around Portugal, being that the whole thing is lightening up and they're letting us crawl around the country now. Albeit we've had our double vaccine and we've got our vaccine certificates, which is really good. So I'm going to be away most of next week, so I'm going to post this, and here's the progress. There it is. I've got frame 7 made, and frame 6, frame 7, and the bow section, and they're all looking pretty good. So I have fed this one down here. In fact, you can see my pencil line there, and down on the other side. So that has brought that in now to exactly 75. So I'm very happy that that is now symmetrical. So what I've done is just to start taking a few measurements off the plans to see if the plans reflect the frames. And I've got frame 6 here, so I can compare. So to continue, I've taken the opportunity, as I said, to measure off the plans exactly what that's, which is how I got frame 7, to get that 75 to the center line on either side. And I measured, from the top there of the deck board up to here, to this level here, and I'm glad to say it was spot on. So then I had a look at this frame, and I got to measure from the center here up to there, and by using a tape I could sort of recreate, as it were, the peak, as it were, by doing that to give me and so from there to the top there was 101.2, and on my pink bit here, the pink frame there, I put that there, it's there, was 101.2. Excellent. So the next thing was to measure from the center line across to the tip of the chine, and I'm just on my 2 millimeters over there, but you can see the angle here to the next blade. This frame has got to be fed off a lot. I mean, the curve of this is going to be from there to there, so there's quite a lot of fairing. Once I've got my longitudinals in there, and there'll be a bit of curve, won't they? But obviously you do that once you've got the longitudinals in place. So that will disappear anyway, because there's going to be a chine put in there, the same as down the bottom. And then the last thing was from that center line to the tip, which was 95, and that was spot on. This one was 95.5. I'm 5 millimeters over on that, but I'm 2 millimeters over there, so I just need to do a very gradual shaving off of that one to get some symmetry going on there. So that's not too bad news after all the depressing news of yesterday and trying to figure out what I was doing wrong. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to check all the other frames as well, but I think I'll wrap up here, and next time we'll be doing, well, we can give you a report on the rest of the frames, the symmetry and sizing. It'd be very interesting until we go back to the transom, because those were the first ones I built, and I wonder now if I was applying the same method and tolerances as I am now, having worked out my 2mm. And then I'm going to put the motor stringers up and start putting the frames on them and building the blocks that will hold the frames to the motor stringers, which is going to take a little while. And I've got a load of zinced carriage bolts to bolt them all together, so it's quite a weight. I mean, even in this piece here now, it's quite a weight to lift that lot up. So I can see where the 1.2 tons comes of the whole boat when constructed. So thanks for watching. Comments below will always be appreciated. Subscribe and you'll get notified of the next video, and I'll catch you guys the next time. Cheers.